Thanks everyone for joining us. Greg Kiger here, Dr. Daniel Orzempa over there.
Hey, Craig, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, sir. Today, I'm going to throw the question at you that some of us have run into. Some of us are just trying to get started in an exercise program, and then others of us have gotten into an exercise program, gotten all excited about it, and we find ourselves sometimes running into the dreaded overtraining where we're just like, gosh, I got a bit too happy and did too much. So any thoughts, experiences, et cetera, that you might want to talk about in terms of overtraining?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a personal story for me because actually recently, I found that I actually was overtrained. So overtraining syndrome is basically when we're placing more load on a person, and basically the key point here is it's not just the load of exercise. It's everything else that's creating stress in your life and everything else that's either promoting recovery or preventing your recovery. So if you think about sleep and stress and how you eat, and other ways that you're moving, and it's all the things even outside of exercise. So that's important to remember. But overtraining syndrome is basically when you start to strip away that ability to recover from all of the exercise plus all the other things going on in your life. And then we start to see a whole suite of clinical symptoms. So for me, I noticed that I was getting overtrained because pretty much every month or even every few weeks, I was getting an upper respiratory infection. Really common manifestation is these repeat upper respiratory infections. You clear one, you're clear for a week or two, and then you get another one, and it's like, well, what's going on here? And so, for me, I eventually, with this whole thing, yeah, and certainly I had other symptoms as well. And you can see a whole suite of symptoms here that include menstrual problems for females, so like menstrual irregularities. That could include mood changes, even outright, depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. Obviously, fatigue is a really common one here, just kind of being tired all the time. So there's a lot of potential manifestations, but those are some of the clinical symptoms. Physiologically, what we start to see happen, and this happened with me, is we can look at the ratio of cortisol to testosterone. And we don't have as great numbers as to like, I can't give you what a normal ratio really is, but what really matters is what your baseline is. Okay. So as you start to see that ratio go up, where you have either more cortisol or less testosterone or both, and when I say go up, I mean we're talking about an increase of about 10 to 50%. Then we start to get into that realm of, okay, well, this is starting to head into overtraining. So for me, my cortisol to testosterone ratio went up 50%, which was a big, big jump. Again, I was getting a lot of viral upper respiratory infections. Certainly, my energy level was lower than normal. Um, you know, one of my daughters, we've been having trouble with her sleep. I was up a lot at night with her. Had some stress around that. Had some stress around work and really didn't adjust my training. My training remained what it was, which, I've been training for 30 years now. And so, I'm probably guilty of training harder than I need to sometimes, just simply because, I'm now, middle age, 42, and I'm not 22 anymore. But I didn't adjust my training. I kind of kept doing a lot of the same things I was doing, working out most days of the week. My recovery was not as good, obviously, because of the sleep and stress issues. And so just over time, again, the my physiology essentially was unable to recover from this. And so again, I started to get some of those symptoms I described, and then actually saw physiologic changes. Interestingly enough, I didn't see heart rate variability changes. So I think heart rate variability it's useful, but I don't know that it's always going to pick up overtraining. I think it's going to pick up short-term stressors. Every time I got sick, my heart rate variability went down. It picked it up,
Hmm.
but it didn't pick up the chronic change over months, over that roughly 6-month time frame.
That makes sense. That might be a lot to ask. And um, of any tracking device or tracking regimen, but it sounds like at its simplest conceptual level, overtraining is just pushing your body beyond that normal cycle where we stress the body and the body recovers. We stress the body, it recovers. And then if we stress it too much, it's failing to recover in a prompt fashion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's just simply an imbalance between what we call total allostatic load, which is the total amount of stress from training and from just life in general, and recovery, which again primarily is a function, well, it can be a function of a lot of things, but definitely sleep and stress are big levers on that side of things.
Absolutely, and that is you also mentioned that the need to kind of keep an eye on your life and make adjustments. I know I've gotten into a mental attitude of I really want to get X number of workouts this week. I really want to hit those metrics, and I tend to forget about this has been a super stressful week, or sleep was disrupted this week for certain reasons. And so your point is well taken that we need to adjust for life. Life does happen, and it has a real effect. So that's a great point that you're trying to look at total load on the body, not just did we go to the gym and hit the weights.
Exactly. Yeah. Total load. And, like I said, I think things like HRV, recovery scores, on the Oura or the Whoop or whatever the wearable is, I think those things are heading in the right direction. I just think that, people can slip through the cracks of those devices. Again, they're not perfect at this point. I was one of those people who did kind of slip through the cracks. My nervous system maintained its ability to suppress my sympathetic drive and have a high parasympathetic drive, which is essentially what HRV is. My nervous system retained that ability throughout. Yet, I still had, an inability to recover from everything that was happening to me from both training and life. And so again, over time, cortisol, started to go up and testosterone started to go down. Um, I should say that, Greg, this is a ratio that probably works better for men, but can work for females as well. Females do have testosterone as well. So that's important to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind here is that if you're going to look at one of the most important metrics of the ratio, it is that cortisol number. So, knowing kind of that first morning cortisol, because even if I forget about the ratio, my morning cortisol was above the normal range for the lab. So that alone probably could have predicted this. But yeah, I mean, we have to just keep in mind that everything we're doing kind of can act as a stressor, even good things. You know, um, you have a business that you love and you love putting work and time towards that. You love doing that with your family. Obviously parenting, is something I love doing, but all these things can have a load. And then if you're not recovering, and then if you're, putting exercise on top of it and then not recovering, then this is when you start to run into problems.
Yeah, and some of it is really kind of a know yourself kind of a thing, like you were saying with a baseline. Um, if you know yourself and you know that, at least for myself, exercise helps steady my mood. I'm in a good mood when I exercise on a regular basis. We urge our clients to, get out there and get moving for all the immense physiological benefits, psychological benefits, etc. But when I'm overtrained, when I'm failing to recover, I notice that everything gets a little grayer, even if the sun is out. And then all of a sudden, that's a good cue that hold on a minute, this isn't being helpful anymore. This is actually dragging me down a notch or two. That's one of my cues, at least, that I see where I know I probably should err on the side of recovery. Maybe it can be gentle, active recovery, but err on the side of recovery for a few days as opposed to hammering again at the gym or something. So
Yeah, I mean, it's desire to train. That's what you're describing. Yeah, that desire to train, is a pretty good metric. Like you wake up and, 1 to 10, 10 being like, I want to train, right now, can't wait. And then one being like, I don't want to train at all. I'd rather do anything else. Having an idea of what your desire to train is every day, I think can be helpful. I think like keeping track and being aware of your baseline energy levels can be helpful. I also think that for someone like me, and I shame on me because I know better, is if you're training all the time, you need to have deload periods. And I think that easily gets forgotten. Sometimes I usually get a 6 week program from my coach. And then, I do that 6 week program. And then usually at the end of the 6 week program, I used to kind of have like a rest week or even, 10 days. But at some point at the end of that 6 week program, I just started doing things that were fun for me. And sometimes what's fun for me is like pushing sleds, pulling sleds. Maybe I didn't squat that cycle. So I'm like, oh, I really miss it. And then at some point, it's like there's no deload here. You just changed activities just to have novelty. And so really being mindful of that deload, and making sure that either, every third or fourth session, you're bringing down your volume so every third or fourth session of especially strength training. But this could also go for endurance training, or after 4 to 6 weeks, making sure that you have a week where you're not inactive, but maybe you're walking more, you're doing some foam rolling, you're doing more gentle movement that's focused around recovery.
And really, and I think maybe you and I need to remember this. Whereas I guess it's important to know your personality. If it's super tough to get to the gym and you don't like to sweat, try to push yourself in that direction. And if you love to get to the gym and love to sweat, or in my case, love to hit the bicycle and go ride real fast, just remember that it's about balance. And I guess effectively nothing really happens in the stressor portion of exercise. It's really all about the reaction to that and the recovery, and we need to support that.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing to remind ourselves of and our patients of regularly that, yeah, I mean, you get stronger or faster or better endurance or whatever adaptation you're looking for when you're recovering. So, yeah, I think that's a great point.
It's an interesting world these days. I know that you have various data gathering mechanisms that you wear on your body. I just started my Whoop, so I'm fairly early in on the what a lot of people have been doing. But just this morning, I felt like, oh my gosh, I have had plenty to do lately, and I should just lay around the house and eat bonbons. And the Whoop told me, nope, you're ready to go out there and hit it. So I took off for the gym because my Whoop told me to. So we'll see how that works out. So
Yeah, yeah, pay attention to that over time. I mean, I think the devices can be good for that sometimes because sometimes it's more psychological and less physiological. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important for us to pay attention to how we feel as well. And that's why people just, having an idea of, okay, you could do this at the end of the day and just say, well, what was my energy level? How did I have my normal level of energy? Did I need to rest more? God forbid, did I need a nap or something like that? Basic sleep quality metrics, how many hours did I sleep? How many times did I wake up during that time? Was I able to get back to sleep? Problems getting or staying asleep? Basic metrics like that, I think can be very powerful.
and maybe in a future newsletter model, we'll go through some of the wearable metric gathering devices. But it's a fascinating world these days with getting feedback just on our individual life about sleep and stress, recovery, how much strain we put our body on, and starting to really key in on our own bodies and figuring out where we're at and where we should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that could be there's a cliffhanger there. Stay tuned for that in a future episode, I suppose. So yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned for more. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. I know most of us have gotten into overtraining once or twice, and it's always a balance between getting off the couch and moving, and not spending too much time chasing those rabbits, and still enjoy life and all that. So it's a balance, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Have a good one.